자, 그러면 12월 5일 월요일 모닝 헤드라인스 조주현 뉴스캐스터와 함께 시작합니다.
With the round of 16 of the Qatar World Cup in full swing, the Netherlands, Argentina, France, and England have earned their tickets to the quarterfinals, while Team Korea gears up to face Brazil on Tuesday.
카타르 월드컵 16강전이 한창 진행 중인 가운데 네덜란드, 아르헨티나, 프랑스, 잉글랜드가 지금까지 8강 티켓을 확보했습니다. 한국팀은 내일 브라질과 맞붙기 위해 전열을 가다듬고 있습니다.
Russia has rejected a price cap set by the Group of Seven Nations, the European Union, and Australia on its oil and is analyzing how to respond.
러시아가 주요 7개국과 유럽연합 그리고 호주가 합의한 러시아산 원유 가격 상한선을 받아들일 수 없다며 향후 대응 방안을 논의 중이라고 밝혔습니다.
Japan has said it is considering expanding an Okinawa-based ground force unit to defend remote southwestern islands and prepare for a contingency involving Taiwan in the face of China's increasing assertiveness.
일본은 대만과 가까운 난세이 제도를 방어하고 갈수록 세력 확장 의도가 짙어지고 있는 중국이 대만을 침공할 경우 등 유사시를 대비해 오키나와 육상자위대 병력을 증강하는 방침을 검토하고 있다고 말했습니다.
New York Mayor Eric Adams has said that he is looking for an expert who can lead the city's war on rats by taking on the job of Director of Rodent Mitigation for an annual salary of up to $170,000.
에릭 애담스 뉴욕 시장이 17만 달러, 우리 돈으로 최고 2억 2천만 원에 달하는 연봉을 내걸고 뉴욕시의 쥐 박멸 작업을 책임지는 이른바 설치류 감축 책임자 자리를 맡을 전문가를 찾는다는 공고를 냈습니다.
St. Helena, a British overseas territory in the South Atlantic Ocean, has marked the historic birthday of the world's oldest living land animal, the Seychelles giant tortoise called Jonathan, who is estimated to be 190 years old.
남대서양의 영국령 세인트 헬레나 섬 정부는 현재 190살로 추정되는 현존 최고령 육지동물인 세이셸 자이언트 거북이 조나탄의 역사적인 생일을 기념하는 행사를 열었습니다. And those are our headlines today.
Morning Headline Expressions.
Let's have a look at the key expressions from today's headlines. The first one was to gear up.
That's right. So it means to get ready or to put on the gear, literally to get ready for something,
To
for
get
battle.
ready. Yeah, in this case, we're talking about Team Korea gearing up for the game against Brazil.
That's right.
Getting ready. 뭔가 준비하는 것을 말하고 있습니다. 그래서 우리가 스포츠뿐만 아니라 일상생활 속에서도 쓸 수 있죠. I'm gearing up for the exam.
Yes.
이렇게 말할 수도 있고요. I'm gearing up for my vacation. 이렇게 말할 수도 있나요?
Yes, of course.
아무거나 뭐 준비할 때. Okay. What about the next one? To respond.
To respond means to react to something. So Russia has rejected a price cap on its oil and is analyzing how to respond. So they will be reacting to this kind of price cap on the oil, and they will be answering to the requests.
Exactly, to respond. I am responding to you, and you respond to me. 우리는 서로 이렇게 화답을 하고 있죠. 대응을 하고 있어요.
That's right.
respond라는 게 사실 이렇게 뭐 대답하다 그런 의미로 쓰기도 하고, 물론 여기 뉴스에서는 대응하다의 의미로 쓴 것인데요. 그때그때 맥락에 맞게 해석을 하시면 됩니다.
That's
So
right.
Russia is quite angry about what the G7 has suggested. It says, no, we're not going to accept this price cap.
Exactly.
We're thinking of how to respond.
They have been receiving so much more than the $60, so why should we cut the prices?
네, 대응을 준비하고 있다라고 했어요. They are preparing to respond. 자, 다음 단어는요. It looks similar to respond. 앞에 re가 들어간 건 똑같지만 좀 다릅니다. Remote.
That's right. Remote means something that's far away. So Japan is considering expanding an Okinawa-based ground force unit to defend remote southwestern islands. So if they have any islands that is officially Japan, however, if it's far away,
Yeah.
then it means that it's a remote islands.
remote, very far away, distant 이런 의미가 있죠. 이렇게 쓰기도 해요. There's a remote possibility
Oh, yes.
that I will become a football player. No, actually, there's no possibility of that happening. Remote possibility 그러면 아주 희미한 가능성이 있다. 근데 아주 멀다라는 뜻이 remote가 있으니까요.
A slim chance.
그렇죠. 그래서 아주 약간의 가능성이 있을 때 there's a remote possibility that blah blah blah. I gave a very bad example there. I am never going to be a football star. But yeah, remote. In this case, we're talking about remote islands. 멀리 떨어져 있는 섬이라는 의미로 볼 수 있습니다. 뭐 일본의 입장에서 봤을 때는 뭐 가까이 있는 일본의 섬들보다는 머니까 이렇게 표현을 한 것 같고요. 자, 그다음에 take something on.
Yes, if you take something on, you are actually starting or accepting the responsibility of a new job or a new occupation. So he's looking for an expert who can lead the city's war on rats by taking on the job of director of rodent mitigation.
So when you take on a job in particular, that means you do that job. You,
Exactly.
어떤-
Accept it.
그렇죠. 일을 맡다라고 할 때 take on a job라고 얘기를 할 수 있죠. 어떤 responsibility or a particular occupation in this case. It can have other meanings as well, but we won't go into that. But in this
Yeah.
case, it's talking about a responsibility. 어떤 책임을 맡을 때 쓰는 표현으로 여기선 썼고요. 다음 마지막인데요. Be estimated to.
Be estimated to or be estimated to be something, right? So if you're estimated to be a certain number or a certain age, then it means that they don't know exactly if you're that age or if you're that specific number, but due to certain circumstances, you seem to be that number or that age.
Exactly.
In this case, a Seychelles giant tortoise called Jonathan, who is estimated to be 190 years old, because of certain circumstances and because of the timing that he arrived at the Seychelles.
estimation이라는 게 그런 추정이죠. 그래서 be estimated to be. In this case, Jonathan, the giant tortoise, is estimated to be 190 years old. But he could be older.
That's right.
무엇으로 추정이 되다까지 살펴봤습니다. Well, those were our expressions. Review 해봤고요. Morning Headline Expressions는 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 무료로 다시 듣기 하실 수 있습니다. 12월 6일 화요일 Morning Headlines. Ray와 함께 시작합니다.
Korea's run at the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 has ended after Brazil defeated Korea 4-1 in the knockout stage.
한국 축구 대표팀이 FIFA 월드컵 16강전에서 브라질에 4-1로 패했습니다.
OPEC Plus, an alliance comprised of OPEC member states and allies including Russia, has decided to stick to its existing policy of reducing oil production by 2 million barrels per day.
석유 수출 국가 기구 OPEC 그리고 러시아 등 비오펙 주요 산유국들의 협의체인 OPEC 플러스가 하루 원유 생산량을 200만 배럴 감산하는 방침을 유지하기로 결정했습니다.
Authorities in North Carolina have declared a state of emergency and imposed a curfew after 2 electric substations were damaged by gunfire, leaving tens of thousands of residents without electricity.
미국 노스캐롤라이나 주에서 변전소 2곳이 총격으로 파손돼 수만 명이 정전 피해를 입고 있으며 당국은 비상사태를 선포하고 통행 금지령을 내렸습니다.
Iran's Attorney General has reportedly said the country's morality police, which is tasked with enforcing Iran's Islamic dress code, is being disbanded following months of protests.
2달 이상의 반정부 시위 끝에 이란 검찰총장은 히잡 등 복장 단속을 하는 지도 순찰대가 폐지될 것이라고 말했다고 외신이 전했습니다.
Around 2,500 endangered seals have been found dead on Russia's Caspian shore, with authorities saying it was unclear why the mass deaths happened, but that it was likely due to natural causes.
러시아 카스피해 연안에서 멸종 위기에 처한 바다표범 2,500마리의 사체가 발견됐습니다. 당국은 원인은 아직 알 수 없으나 자연적인 원인일 가능성이 높다고 말했습니다. And those are our morning headlines.
Morning headline expressions.
Let's have a look at the key expressions from today's headlines. Knockout stage in football.
Knockout stage in football means if you lose, you're done.
out.
You go home.
knock는 이제 툭 치는 거죠. 그리고 out 그러면 빠져버리는 거. 그래서 knockout is like you're gone.
Yeah, or
완전히,
in boxing or in combat sports, a knockout means you're punched and then you go unconscious.
그 KO 승 할 때
Yeah.
KO가 knockout이기도 하죠. 그래서 축구에서는 이렇게 월드컵에서 말하는 knockout stage라는 것은 16강 때부터 16강, 8강, 4강 뭐 이렇게 다 knockout stage라고 부르는데요. 그 중에서도 이번에 이제 16강에 대한 얘기에서 knockout stage라는 표현을 썼습니다. Before that you have the group stage.
Right, and if you lose in the group stage, you don't necessarily have to go home until the end of the group stage. So you get to play 3 games.
Yeah.
You can lose them all, like my country did.
It's very sad you say that.
But again, that was the first time Canada's made the World Cup since 1986.
Oh, wow.
And I
So
don't
well
even remember
done.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they scored. Canada had never scored a World Cup goal. So,
Really?
you have to take these small steps,
Yeah.
right?
Korea had been like that before 2002.
Sure, exactly.
And then since
Great
then,
success
of course,
since then.
Yeah, absolutely. 자, 다음에는요. To stick to something.
You don't change it. You continue with what you're doing. So, even sometimes like we have headlines and we think like, oh, should we change it like this? Should we, you know what? Let's just stick to what we have. I think it's good enough.
그러네요.
You can use it in many different ways. Stick to your original plan, stick to your original idea.
원래 계획대로 가는 겁니다. 뭔가 고수하거나 지킬 때 쓰는 표현이고요. 우리 뭐 원고에 대한 얘기를 해주셨는데 우리가 원고에다 뭘 쓰고 그 다음에 바꿀까 말까? 아니야. 원래대로 그냥 가자. Let's stick to the original. 뭐 이렇게 갈 수도 있네요. Alright, stick to something. That means you don't change it. What about curfew?
Curfew depends on the context. We were talking how in the U.S. state of North Carolina, authorities have declared a state of emergency. So they imposed a curfew, meaning people must be indoors between certain times. So it's 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., not allowed to go outside. When I was a kid, curfew meant, when I was like a teenager in high school, curfew means the time you have to be home by.
Yeah.
Your parents set a time and you can be out hanging out with your friends, but got to be home by curfew.
Exactly. 통행금지령, 통행금지 시간, curfew라고 합니다. 미국 노스캐롤라이나에서는요, 대규모 지금 정전 사태로 인해서 며칠째 계속 전력이 공급 안 되고 있고, 그 다음에 신호등조차도 그러다 보니까 그냥 아예 밖에 나가는 것이 위험해서 stay indoors, 이런 curfew, 통행금지령이 내려졌다고 합니다. 자, 그 다음에 be tasked with something.
If you're tasked with something, that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
It's something you must do.
Be tasked with. So someone is tasked with something.
You're given a task. You could also
Exactly.
say it that way as well.
So another way of saying someone has the task of doing something, it's the same thing.
You can say you've been tasked with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Something you're responsible for doing.
Well, the final expression we looked at was natural causes.
Right, when you die of natural causes.
Yeah.
So that's when someone dies of either illness or old age, opposed to an accident or
Sure.
violence.
그렇죠. 자연사하다를 영어로 die of natural causes라고 합니다. All right, well, that's going to do it for our key expressions from the headlines today. 자, 이렇게 오늘 헤드라인에서 나온 표현들 리뷰해봤고요. 모닝 헤드라인 익스프레션스는 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 무료로 다시 듣게 하실 수 있습니다. 12월 7일 수요일 모닝 헤드라인스 뉴스캐스터 레이와 함께 시작합니다.
The average life expectancy of Korean babies born last year stands at 83.6 years, according to Statistics Korea, hovering above the average of major advanced countries.
통계청에 따르면 지난해 태어난 아이의 기대 수명이 83.6년으로 주요 선진국의 평균 기대 수명을 웃돌았습니다.
European Union and U.S. officials have committed in principle to resolving a dispute over electric vehicle incentives, saying that their joint task force's work on addressing the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act has made preliminary progress.
유럽연합과 미국은 인플레이션 감축법상의 외국산 전기차 보조금 차별 문제를 해결하기 위한 태스크포스 차원의 논의에서 초기적 진전이 있었다고 평가하면서 문제를 함께 해결해 나가기로 원칙적으로 합의했습니다.
The Chinese capital Beijing has dropped the need for people to show negative COVID tests to enter supermarkets and offices, the latest in an easing of curbs across the country.
중국 베이징시 방역 당국은 쇼핑몰 등 공공장소 출입 시 코로나19 검사 음성 증명서를 제시할 필요가 없다고 밝히면서 일부 완화된 조치를 발표했습니다.
Ukraine has reported a fresh barrage of Russian missile strikes as the Kremlin shrugged off the West's price cap on oil meant to weaken its war effort.
서방 사회가 유가 상한제를 도입하여 러시아를 약화시키려 하자 러시아가 이에 반발해 우크라이나 전역에 미사일 공습을 다시 시작했다고 우크라이나 관계자가 전했습니다.
Chile's snow-capped Villarrica volcano has shown significant activity, placing authorities on alert for a possible eruption in a picturesque area loved by tourists.
칠레의 눈 덮인 미아리카 화산에서 폭발 징후가 나타났습니다. 당국은 관광객이 많이 찾는 지역에서 화산 폭발이 일어날 수 있는 만일의 사태에 대비하고 있습니다. And those have been today's headlines.
Morning Headline Expressions.
Let's have a look at the key expressions from today's headlines. The first one was to hover.
So if we're talking about hovering around a certain rate or a certain temperature, it means it's around that area. So in our headline, it said hovering above. So we were talking about life expectancy and how the Korean life expectancy will hover above the OECD average. So it's going to be slightly above it.
Right. hover라는 것 자체는 맴돈다는 뜻이 있지만 hover above 하니까 살짝 웃도는 느낌이 있는 거군요. To hover above.
And this week, we're going to see temperatures in Korea hovering around freezing.
Yes, definitely. In principle이라는 표현도 한번 볼까요?
In principle. So usually you'll say you agree to something in
Yeah,
principle.
sure.
So for example, maybe I wanted to buy your car, right? Let's just say
You want to buy me a car?
No, I want to buy your car. You're going to sell me your car. So let's say you say I'm going to sell my car.
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of car? And maybe I'm
Yeah.
interested. So we kind of agree in principle that I'll buy your car. But then when we get down to the nitty-gritty, we get down to the
Sure,
details, maybe we might not be able to come to an agreement. So when you agree to something in principle, you're agreeing in general or you're agreeing to the idea of something, but you haven't worked out the details yet.
Exactly. So in principle, that's one expression. 원칙적으로라는 뜻이죠. You could agree to something in principle, but then when it comes to the details, you may disagree.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that you're
That's right.
actually going to make the deal.
Yeah, so the EU and the US, they've agreed in principle to move ahead with talks, but we don't know what's going to happen.
Right, and they're only agreeing to work on it.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah.
even agreeing in principle to change something.
Oh, that's true as well. So they're just agreeing in principle to discuss and work together on this issue.
Sounds like a lot of lip service to me.
자, 다음 표현 보겠습니다. To curb something.
Right, so there's two different ways you can use this. So if you use it as a verb and you try to curb something, you reduce something, right? So the idea we talked about trying to curb the spread of COVID, and that's what China's still trying to do, meaning to try and control it or limit the spread of it. But you can also call something a curb as a noun, which we did in this headline, the easing of curbs,
Right.
meaning the curb in that case would just be the limitations that you put on something.
As a verb, it means to reduce. 뭔가 줄이는 것을 curbing 한다고 얘기할 수가 있어요. So you could curb the number of patients, or you maybe curb your intake of calories,
Sugar,
or
you
sugar.
could curb your enthusiasm.
Yep, I don't want to do that. curb는 이렇게 뭔가 줄여나간다라는 의미가 있을 수 있는데 그거 말고 이제 명사로 썼을 때는요. 제한 아니면은 억제라는 뜻이 있어서 여기서는 이제 엄격한 그 방역 정책 그런 것들을 말하고 있습니다. 그런 것들을 easing, 완화하려고 하는 움직임이 중국에서 보이고 있고요. 자, 그 다음에는 이제 그 제스처가 좀 들어가는 표현인데 to shrug off.
Shrug it off.
아, 이렇게 하는 거예요.
Yeah,
하나 이렇게
brush that dirt off your shoulder.
털어내는 거군요. 그래서 뭐 그러거나
I'm not going to worry about it. It's not going to bother me. Somebody might say something rude or
I see.
insulting to you, and just don't even worry about it. Right? I'm not
신경
going to
안
let
쓰는
that
거예요.
bother you.
Okay, I'm just going to shrug it off.
Shrug it off. Yeah.
And you actually say that, don't you?
Yeah.
Hey, shrug it off.
Shrug it off. Don't worry about it.
Don't
You say it a lot
worry.
actually when you're playing sports, right? So one of your teammates, maybe they make a mistake and they're all down on themselves.
너무 속상해. 그랬을 때,
Shrug it off.
아유, 그냥
Don't worry about it. Let it go.
넘어가.
Let's
그냥,
move on.
너무 신경 쓰지 마. 이런 느낌으로 shrug it off 이렇게 얘기하는 건데요. 자, 여기서는 Russia is shrugging off
Yeah.
all of these price caps and not sanctions, but policies that are aimed to weaken Russia.
Right, they're not letting it
shrugging
bother
off.
them. They're
Yeah.
just continuing to attack
Exactly.
attack Ukraine.
The final one is picturesque.
Picturesque. Yeah, here's a nice one after
It's
some
very
after
nice.
some of these other ones. If something is well, usually we're talking about a landscape, right? So Saraksan is very
beautiful.
picturesque.
Yes.
So many areas. The sea, right, can be picturesque. Mountains, volcanoes, I guess, can also be. They are, definitely picturesque.
제주도,
Oh yeah,
just in general, it's very picturesque.
Right, so visually attractive, very beautiful, very nice to look at.
한 폭의 그림과 같은 아름다운 경치를 보통은 이제 picturesque하다라고 합니다. All right, well, that's going to do it for our expressions from the headlines. 모닝 헤드라인 expressions는요, 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 무료로 다시 듣기 하실 수 있습니다. 자, 그러면 12월 8일 목요일 모닝 헤드라인스 뉴스캐스터 레이와 함께 시작합니다.
Baek Young-ran, head of the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, has raised the possibility of easing indoor mask mandates by as early as January, or at the latest by March next year.
백경란 질병관리청장이 실내 마스크 착용 의무의 완화 시점을 이르면 내년 1월, 늦어도 3월로 제시했습니다.
A parliamentary subcommittee has passed a set of bills requiring the use of the international age counting system in all judicial and administrative areas, rather than the unique Korean age counting system.
앞으로 국내 모든 사법 및 행정 분야에서 이른바 한국식 나이가 아닌 만 나이를 사용하도록 규정한 관련법 개정안이 국회 법제사법위원회를 통과했습니다.
Bloomberg has published its 2023 outlook, which forecasts that the world economy will face one of its worst years in 3 decades, with global growth at a meager 2.4%, the lowest since 1993.
경제 매체 블룸버그는 내년 세계 경제 성장률이 1993년 이후 최저치인 2.4%에 그칠 것으로 예상하면서 내년 세계 경제가 30년 만에 최악의 부진을 보일 것이라고 전망했습니다.
The U.S. Democratic Party has cemented its control of the U.S. Senate by winning a bitterly fought seat in the state of Georgia, giving the Democrats a majority of 51 to 49 in the upper chamber of Congress.
미국 민주당이 조지아주에서 치열한 접전 끝에 공화당을 누르고 의석을 확보했습니다. 그 결과 51대 49의 과반을 얻으면서 상원에서의 확실한 장악력을 굳혔습니다.
The Canadian province of Quebec has introduced legislation that would drop the 155-year-old requirement that elected officials swear an oath to the British Crown.
캐나다 퀘벡 주정부는 주의원 취임 선서 시 요구되는 영국 국왕에 대한 충성 서약을 155년 만에 폐지하는 법안을 내놨습니다. And those are today's headlines.
Morning headline expressions.
자, 오늘의 헤드라인에 나왔던 주요 표현들입니다. The first one was to raise the possibility of something.
Means you say that something could happen, right? If you raise anything, you raise an issue, you bring it up, you mention it, you talk about it.
Well, the head of the KDCA has raised the possibility of easing indoor mask mandates.
Right, we don't know for sure, but
Yeah.
she said it's possible.
Yeah.
Could happen.
She's even given us pretty much a time frame, so it could be between January and March that we start
Right.
not having to wear masks indoors.
Right, so apparently they're going to make this decision by the end of the year. So
Yeah,
we'll find out within the next couple of weeks
absolutely.
what direction they're going in.
Well, the second expression was the age counting system. That just
Yeah.
describes how we count the age,
Yeah,
right?
an age counting
Yeah.
system. It's just the way you count.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. This is quite unique to Korea because
is.
other countries wouldn't even, like if you told this to someone who didn't know that, what's your age counting system? Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. The term itself, there's really no need for it in other countries because they
Yeah.
only have one.
Yeah.
So there is no need to say this is an age counting system. It's just
Right.
age
Yeah.
in most countries. However, in Korea, we have our own counting system.
So
the
you need to
Korean age.
differentiate it.
Yes,
Yeah,
and that's why
exactly.
we call the other type the international age, which is not called that anywhere else.
I used to get annoyed when people would call it Miguk age. I used to get so annoyed by that because I'm like, America did not create age, right? I get so annoyed. They would just make the hair on the back of my neck
그럴
stand
수
up.
있겠네요. 이 만 나이를 이제 가끔씩 사람들은 미국 나이라고 부르기도 하는데 캐나다에서 온 레이가 들었을 때 아니 왜 뭐 미국 사람들이 만들어낸 것도 아닌데 왜 미국 에이지야? 이건 그냥 international 국제 에이지지 뭐 이런 생각이 드셨군요. 이 age counting system. 자, 그다음에 전망 outlook.
Outlook, meaning forecast, right? It's what they expect. We're talking about this is an economic outlook. Bloomberg saying what they think,
Yeah.
how the economy will develop and grow next year.
That's right. An outlook is very much like a forecast, although with the economic stories, we have both outlook and forecast. But with the weather, we don't say outlook, only forecast.
Right, exactly. You can also talk about someone having like a very optimistic outlook on life, the way you
Yes.
view things.
Oh, that's
you can look
right.
at outlook as that. It's the way you view something. And this is, when we look at economic forecasts, it's the way those economists are viewing what will happen.
That's so true. Someone who has a positive outlook on life. 인생을 아주 긍정적으로 내다보는 사람. 그런 이제 optimist를 표현할 때도 outlook 쓸 수 있어요. 그때는 전망이라기보다는 그냥 그렇게 보는 거죠. 인생을 밝게 내다보는 사람.
We call those people glass half
Half
full
full
people.
people,
right?
yes.
So if you're a pessimist, you're like, oh, my glass is half empty. But an optimist says, well, my glass is half full.
Yeah, and you can say, as you said, this person is a glass half empty person. This person is a glass half full person.
Right.
All right, the next expression is a verb, to cement.
Right. I think everyone knows the noun cement,
Yeah.
right? It's what roads are made of, buildings are made of, and it's obviously very, very strong.
Yes.
Right, so there's the clue. So if you use cement as a verb, it means you're strengthening something, you're making
Yeah.
it stronger. If you talk about cementing an agreement, for example, you solidified it.
Solidify is another good way of expressing this. Yeah. Well, the US Democratic Party has cemented its control of the Senate because now they absolutely have a majority.
Exactly.
뭔가 굳건히 하다. 자, 그리고 마지막은 oath입니다.
An oath is a solemn or formal promise. You're promising to do something. So, in this case, elected officials in Canada need to swear an oath to the British monarch,
Yeah.
meaning they will be loyal. If you take an oath of office, same
Yeah,
thing, right?
sure.
You promise to do the job. When you're in court, if you take the oath, you're under oath. It means you've promised that you will tell the truth. And usually you put your hand on the Bible.
Exactly. An oath. 맹세, 서약 이런 의미가 있고요. 그거를 이제 하나의 phrase로 만들면 swear an oath, 뭐 take an oath 이렇게
When you're
표현하기도 합니다.
under oath, they say that in court.
법정에서는 네, 지금 이제 거짓말을 전혀 하면 안 되는 상황이다. You are under oath. 맹세하셨습니다.
If you
이런
lie,
의미로.
it's illegal.
That's right.
Another crime.
There you go. 자, 이렇게 헤드라인에서 나온 표현 리뷰해봤습니다. 모닝 헤드라인 익스프레션스는 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 다시 듣기 하실 수 있습니다. 자, 그러면은 12월 9일 금요일 모닝 헤드라인스 뉴스캐스터 폴과 함께 시작합니다.
The government has ordered striking unionised truckers in the steel and petrochemical industries to return to work, with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo calling the walkout unjustified and a serious blow to key industries and the nation's economy.
정부는 파업 중인 화물연대의 철강, 석유화학 업종 운송 거부자들에 대한 업무 개시 명령을 발동했습니다. 이와 관련해 한덕수 국무총리는 이번 운송 거부가 명분이 없으며 국가 경제의 핵심 산업에 심각한 타격을 주는 행위라고 지적했습니다.
Dina Boluarte has been sworn in as Peru's first female president after a day of political drama that saw ex-president Pedro Castillo arrested for alleged crime of rebellion and impeached by lawmakers.
지난 7일 페드로 카스티오 페루 전 대통령이 내란 혐의로 체포되고 의회에서 탄핵되는 급박한 상황이 전개된 끝에 디나 볼루아르테 부통령이 페루 역사상 첫 여성 대통령으로 취임했습니다.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has said the threat of a nuclear war was rising, but insisted Russia had not gone mad and would only use weapons of mass destruction in response to an attack.
블라디미르 푸틴 러시아 대통령이 다시금 핵무기 사용 가능성을 거론했습니다. 그러면서도 러시아는 이성을 잃지 않았다며 자국이 공격을 받았을 경우에만 대량 살상 무기를 사용할 것이라고 주장했습니다.
The UK has green-lighted the country's first new coal mine in 30 years, despite concern that it would undermine climate targets, with supporters claiming the mine will create jobs and reduce the need to import coal.
기후 목표 달성을 저해한다는 반대 의견에도 불구하고 영국이 30여 년 만에 신규 탄광 개발을 허가했습니다. 지지자들은 일자리를 창출하고 석탄 수입을 억제하는 데 도움이 된다는 입장입니다.
A dog that fell off a cliff on Vancouver Island in Canada has been reunited with her family after she was found desperately clinging to a narrow ledge 7 days since she went missing.
캐나다 밴쿠버 섬 절벽에서 떨어졌던 개가 절벽 아래 좁은 바위턱에서 7일이나 버틴 끝에 구조돼 주인 가족 품에 돌아갔습니다.
Morning headline expressions.
오늘 헤드라인에 나온 주요 표현입니다. A walkout.
I've had enough. That's it. No, sorry,
아니,
Sue. I'm
아니
going.
갑자기 일
Not
그만두시고
working. Refuse to work.
걸어서 나가시네요. 파업하시는 건가요? 자, 파업입니다. walkout라는 명사인데요. 한 단어예요. 그런데 이렇게 walk out 하는 거죠. 말 그대로.
Literally walk out.
일하다 말고 갑자기 일어서서 나가는 그 이미지에서 나온 표현입니다. 그래서 a walkout, a strike. 자, 그다음에 두 번째 표현은요. A rebellion.
Yes, some kind of fight against whoever is in power, be it the government or be it the military or whoever it may be. You're fighting against them. If you're a rebel, you
그죠.
create a rebellion.
네, 반란이라는 의미가 있는데 뉴스에서는 이제 내란이라는 뜻으로 해석을 또 했고요. 그다음에 여러 가지 환경 단체들 중에 보면은 Extinction Rebellion,
Yes.
그다음에 또 뭐더라, Animal Rebellion, 뭐 그래서 rebellion이 들어간 이런 환경 기후 단체라든지 아니면 무슨 여러 가지 그 운동 단체들이 있더라고요. 그래서 그때는 이제 예를 들자면 Extinction Rebellion은 아마 그 뭐 meat 반대하는 사람들인가요?
Well, it's all about the climate. It's about meat. It's
환경.
about everything.
그래요?
It's about blocking traffic in the roads because you're protesting cars. They've done that before. They've locked themselves to certain rails and buildings.
그러니까요.
They rebel.
네. 맞아요. 그 Animal Rebellion 같은 경우에는 채식주의를 해야 된다라는 걸 엄청 주장하면서
네.
고기를 파는 레스토랑에 가가지고 시위하기도 하고 그런데 진짜 이렇게 약간 반란을 일으키는 것처럼 시위를 좀 격하게 많이 해서 우리가 뉴스에서 좀 다루기도 했었죠. 미술관 같은 데 가가지고 이렇게 접착제로 손에다가 이렇게 붙여서 미술 작품에다가 떼지 않겠다. 환경 문제 생각하지 않으면 우리 안 물러선다. 이런 좀 과격 시위를 할 때도 그 rebel 한다라고 볼 수 있어요. 자, 그다음에는 insist.
You strongly say, you must believe me, or you strongly demand that you're allowed to do something. I insist. Insist means this, or I insist you buy me dinner.
그래요. 뭔가 주장할 때 나는 이렇게 하고 싶다라는 뜻이죠. 그래서 좋은 의미로는요. 내가 살게. 아니야. 진짜 내가 쏘고 싶어. 이럴 때 많이 써요. 그때 그냥 긴 표현이 필요 없습니다. I insist. 이렇게 하면서 카드를 꺼내시면 됩니다. 자, 그 다음에 green light.
To give the go-ahead. Green means go, means you're allowed to do it.
그렇죠. 네, 초록불을 켜는 겁니다. 허가해 주는 거고요. Cling to something.
Hold tightly, 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 very, very tightly, just like Luna the dog.
네, 꽉 붙잡고 있는, 매달고 있는 그런 상황이기 때문에 매달리는 사람한테 쓸 수도 있고 아니면은 상황이 정말 내가 꼭 붙잡고 있는 상황일 때 쓸 수 있습니다. 자, cling to something까지 살펴봤어요. 오늘 헤드라인에서 나온 표현들 다시 듣고 싶으시면은요. 오디오 어학당과 유튜브 무료로 다시 들으시면 됩니다.